The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com. Johnny, tell me a little bit about Mark Rollerball Rocco, because he's another legend of that era, the 70s and the 80s, and became famous all over the world, much like yourself. But I think he's kind of renowned for being one of the best British wrestlers to have ever come out of our country. And you had some matches with Rollerball Rocco, and he was another larger-than-life character on the scene. What do you remember about Rollerball?
What a fella. I don't know. He was a bundle of energy. A bundle of it had to be, whatever. Get stuck in and wrestle. And a nice fella, real gentleman when he wanted to be. But he realised, because his dad had been a professional wrestler, you know. He realised that if you wanted to get anywhere in this business, you had to make a mark on people. You had to come in the business like an explosion. Yeah. And you had to do things that people remember, and that's what Mark did. He came in the business and he kicked and he stomped and he leant over the top rope and he cursed and he.
Well, this is it. I think your characters and your fighting styles probably complemented one another, because he was a proper villain, wasn't he? And yes. He would give it to the crowd. Yes. And he'd be quite full on in the ring. Yeah. And would you say that he was one of your favourite opponents, or maybe one of your favourite people to be around in the business?
Well, he was good for the business, definitely good for the business. And the one thing about Mark, when you came out of a match with Mark, you knew you'd been in a match. Because you'd have...
You felt it.
Yeah, you'd have a cut somewhere, definitely. But, he was good for the business.
And I suppose kind of the one thing that a lot of people talk very fondly of about that time span, that era, World of Sport era, is a lot of the pros like yourself took it very seriously. Oh, yes. And if you didn't make it look real, the fans would recognise that a mile off. Absolutely. I think there was a legitimacy about what you guys did in the 70s and the 80s that you took a lot of pride from.
Absolutely. My golden rule was, if ever I went on with anybody, is get what you can. And if you don't, when we link up, you've got 2-3 seconds to take something. If you don't take it, you've lost it. I'm going to take something.
Yeah. What are your memories about Jimmy Breaks as well? Because I think Jim Breaks would probably go down as one of your fiercest rivals. I know that you had several matches over the World Lightweight Championship. Yeah. And I think he's another one like Mark Rollerball Rocco that wasn't popular with the crowds, wasn't popular with the fans, but I think your styles complemented one another, and I think it probably one of your most fiercest rivals, shall we say?
He knew what the business was about. He knew that you've got to make a crash. You've got to wake them people up. Yeah. He had it all up here. Jimmy did.
He played the crowd very well, didn't he?
He knew he could play the crowd. He could wind them up like an elastic band and let them go. He had it all up there, Jimmy. Yeah. And he was fantastic to wrestle, but I don't know. He had it all. Jimmy did.
We spoke a bit earlier about Max Crabtree, but tell us a little bit about Shirley Crabtree now, Big Daddy. Yeah. Because, of course, certainly for Dale Martin Promotions and joint promotions in the 70s and the 80s, Big Daddy was the star, wasn't he? He was the main eventer. Wasn't technically proficient like you and some of the other boys, but he was always positioned as the main eventer, and the Union Jack, the red, white and blue, the top hat, the sequins, couldn't be any more different really to maybe yourself or some of the other boys. But what was Shirley or Big Daddy like in the locker room and to work with?
He was all right. It was Max Crabtree was the brains behind it all. Max knew that the business needed something. It needed lifting because the business had flopped a little bit.
Yeah.
And so Max started and created this. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. But from the minute the curtains opened and Shirley came out and the music was playing,
the razzmatazz, the larger than life,
the larger than life character. Get in the ring and 2 or 3 belly bumps and things like that, and it gave the crowd what they wanted, because the crowd wanted to be oof.
Yeah, and I suppose it added a bit of variety to the show as well, didn't it? Where you had your guys, yourself and the Jim Breaks that would do the wrestling, and the Big Daddy would come out at the end and do the entertaining. Did you ever work any matches with Shirley?
No, I don't think I ever did. No, I don't think our styles would complement one another. But I really understand what Max did. What Max knew that the business needed to be lifted, and he certainly lifted it.
Well, that's right. And when you think, when I was growing up in the 80s, Big Daddy, Shirley Crabtree was on adverts on TV.
Yes.
He was like, I suppose if I was to compare him to any of the big American stars, he was UK's version of Hulk Hogan, and he was absolutely everywhere, wasn't he? Very marketable.
Absolutely.
Which helped the business.
Oh, absolutely. Put the business right back on its feet again.
Yeah. Was there any resentment from the boys about how Shirley was positioned as this big main eventer? Was there any kind of resentment in terms of why is he always getting the push? Why is he always getting the main event spot?
Well, if there was, I'm not aware of it. But the thing is, from my point of view, it was much better to go to a hall and wrestle in front of a crowd that was packed.
Yeah.
And it was Shirley that was drawing them in, rather than go to a hall. Shirley wasn't on, and the hall was empty.
You make a good point. Yeah, definitely. And I know around 86 and 87, dare I say, you moved over from joint promotions to All-Star Wrestling, to Brian Dixon.
Yes, I did, yes.
What were the circumstances around that? Do you remember kind of what the catalyst of that move was for yourself?
Well, it was basically about money, really. The cost of living was going up, and you try to get extra wages for your matches, but obviously joint promotions were very restrictive, and so I moved over to Brian Dixon Promotions, who offered me quite a considerable amount more money.
Was it seen as a controversial move at the time? Because I know that, if you were working for Max Crabtree and joint promotions, or Dale Martin, for example, you couldn't work for the opposition. Right. You couldn't work for All-Star. And was it seen with some raised eyebrows at the time, Johnny?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, you worked for joint promotions, and that was it. You couldn't work for anybody else. But if joint promotions had got no work, what are you supposed to do? Especially if you've got families to look after, and so you have to go where the money is, don't you?
Yeah.
And Brian Dixon knew that he could offer extra money for your matches, and so it was common sense to go over.
Yeah, and I think, having spoken to maybe Tony Sinclair and 1 or 2 others, I think that your move over, your jump, was seen as the catalyst for a few other boys following you, and I think All-Star kind of benefited from you making that move in the first instance.
Definitely, yes. I had a few people phone me up once I'd moved over and asked me what it was like, and I said, well, it's not all laid out and organised like joint promotions was, but nevertheless I'm earning more money.
Yeah, and of course we, had the very sad loss of Brian Dixon this year.
Yes.
You knew the great man for many years. Any fond memories of working for Brian Dixon? Because, of course, from 86 onwards, you was a regular for his group, weren't you, for All Star?
Yeah. Well, he was a straight, nice fella, actually. You can always have a laugh and a joke with him. And, and he seemed to take... Sometimes you'd turn up at a hall and there was hardly anybody there, and he'd just take it in his stride, I got on well with him. I got on well with the family.
Yeah.
And it was a great loss, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've not heard anything but praise for Brian and the people that have worked for him.
Yeah.
We sadly missed, of course. I want to talk to you now about Steve Gray, because we've spoken about a few of your classic opponents over the year, but I think Steve Gray would probably be another one of those that's synonymous with yourself. You had kind of many battles over the years with Steve.
That's right, yes.
And I think another renowned technical wrestler. But what are your memories of working with Steve? I can only assume that your styles complemented one another and that you were great dance partners in the ring.
Our styles did complement one another very much, and the crowd really enjoyed the what's the word I'm looking for? The styles.
The competition between the two of you.
Competition between the two of us, yes. And he was a great wrestler, honestly. He was, and I enjoyed wrestling with him because he kept you on your toes up here.
Yeah. Yeah, and Steve's still keeping himself busy. He's doing seminars, and I know that when I interviewed Mel Sanders recently, Steve came up in the conversation quite a few times. So I'd love to get Steve on the show, but that's another interview for another day. But Steve, another kind of legend of that era. Let's talk about the World Lightweight Championship now, Johnny, because I think that when people think of that championship, they automatically think of yourself.
Right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have you down as having won it maybe 10 times throughout your career?
I think I did defend it 10 times, yes.
Yeah, and
10 times,
you won it 10 times. And obviously, I think that championship helped to put you on the map, and you probably helped to raise the championship as well. What are your kind of... That's a championship that's very close to your heart, and like I say, I think the championship also retired when you first retired as well, didn't it? I don't think it was defended after that.
I don't think it was, actually. I'm not even sure it exists any longer.
I don't think so.
No, I mean, I don't want to sound big-headed here, but I was always brought up to take pride in what I did and give, whatever you do, give it 100%. And I always gave the wrestling 100%.
Yes.
Because I was always happy with my physical prowess, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I used to love training, love running, love getting in the ring, and so I was quite, let's say I was proud. I was proud to be that champion.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I think it was about 88 when World of Sport stopped airing on ITV.
Yeah.
What sort of effect did that have on the business around then? Because of course that was the shop window, wasn't it? That was the shop window that people would watch it on a Saturday afternoon and then go to the halls in the week and watch you guys perform at whatever location you were. But when that came to an end, what effect did it have on business and your bookings, and how often you were booked or performing?
Well, for a period of time, the business literally collapsed.
Right.
Once it came off television, that was it, and it took a while for other promoters to pick up the halls that joint promotions had stopped using, and it was a real difficult period, actually, a real difficult period.
And of course it was around then when the American product really started to take off over here in the UK and worldwide. But was there any... I know that there was a lot of promotions that started doing kind of Americanized gimmicks and things like that. Yes. Did you see the benefit of that at all?
No, I didn't, actually, because... how can I put this? I was always... Well, I came up under Billy Robinson.
Yeah.
And Billy was a straight wrestler. And I always looked at the business and tried to keep it straight, you know. But I realised that people wanted more than just straight wrestling. They wanted more than I could give them. And so I had to accept the fact that there's a lot of showmen coming in the business. And the thing was that as long as they kept the business going, then I was in work as well.
Absolutely.
So I had to accept a lot of things that I didn't like.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to talk a little bit about Japan now, Johnny, because I don't know how many times you went out there, but I have you going down there towards the end of 1996 for a 3-month stint for Michinoku Pro.
Yes.
And going through the record books, I don't think you went over to Japan much, really, in your career. Do you have any fond memories of working over in Japan?
Yeah, I think I went over 3 times in total. Unfortunately, my periods in Japan seemed to come towards the end of my career. I was past my sell-by date as such over there. But I really, really enjoyed it over there because they wanted me to teach them stuff all the time. And so I did as much work in the gymnasium as I did wrestling, and I really, really did enjoy it.
Yeah. And it was just after that you retired. For the first time, certainly.
Yes.
Nobody stays retired for too long in the wrestling business, as we know. But you retired late 96, early 97, and you was gone for 10 years. And was that because you felt, as you just said, you were, maybe at the twilight of your career and that you couldn't offer what you could offer before? Were there other factors?
Yeah, there was. I mean, you can't spend your life in a business like that without it doesn't take its toll on your body. And so, like I say, I've got a false knee and one or two, my hands are all disfigured, and so it does catch up with you, so you need to give your body a rest. But then, having rested my body, like now, I've rested my body, and I feel, woof, I'd like to get in that ring now and have a go.
Yeah.
But you've got to realise, hang on a minute, you're getting older. It doesn't matter what you think up here, it's what this counts for.
Gotcha.
The body.
But you did come back, didn't you, after about 10 years absence?
Yes.
Certainly in the 2000s, there appeared to be this big resurgence or nostalgia for the golden era again.
The golden era,
and
yes.
people that were popular in the 70s and the 80s were now popular again in the early to mid 2000s. So you're talking 20 years down the line, there was this resurgence. People like Mal Sanders and yourself and Steve Gray were making this comeback, and it was popularised again, and certainly not just in the UK but in Germany and the US, and you came out of retirement. So what was the inspiration or the catalyst behind you coming back? Who convinced you?
I don't know who it was that convinced me, but I mean, I don't know. Could it have been my ego? You were a world champion. You were in a business all your life. You loved the business. That's how you earned your living. Could I now come back and be the same again? Could I, so I think that was the thinking behind it. But time marches on, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but it was around that time when a certain Mike Quackenbush came into your life.
That's right.
And I think it was probably during a tour of Germany when you first met Mike.
Yes.
I had Mike on my show a little while ago, and we spoke about this when he kind of first bumped into you, because he's always had this fascination with the British style and with World of Sport.
Yes.
And then, of course, he got introduced to yourself, Johnny. and then of course he got you over to the States, didn't he?
That's right,
And
he did,
with
yes.
his old promotion, Shikara.
Excuse me.
Did you want to drink a water? Okay.
No, I'm okay.
You're right. So he got you involved, got you over to the States about 2009 with Shikara, the King of Trios.
Yes.
You two really hit it off. But that was another chapter in your career, going over to the States and performing for Mike and Shikara.
Yes, it was actually, and I really enjoyed it. But it's like I've said, time marches on and time waits for no man. And I realised I was getting a bit older, and I seem to have spent my life on the road, and I was a little bit homesick actually.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get back home and be with my friends and family, and I think there comes a time in your life when you've excuse me, spent as much time as I have on the road and away from home and in different parts of the world, and you think, hang on a minute, it's time I settle down a little bit.
But when you did kind of wrestle through the late 2000s, and you had several matches with Mr. Smooth, didn't you, Johnny Kidd?
Yes.
Now I know that Johnny's come up once or twice already in this conversation, but once again, I think he was probably quite young when he made his debut, and the world of sport was probably just coming to an end.
Yeah.
So he probably had a few years on him, but another very smooth, technically proficient wrestler.
Oh, yes.
And the two of you had some pretty good battles during your second stint.
Yes, we did. And like I say, it was sometimes it was like wrestling myself. No, he's a good professional. He gave it 100% all the time. Yeah.
And still performs today, I think.
Does he? Well,
yeah, absolutely.
Good luck to him. Good luck to him. In fact, if he's still performing, I'm going to make a comeback and I'll challenge him.
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. A couple of final questions then, Johnny.
Right.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. But let's talk a little bit about WWE. And NXT UK, because of course we spoke about when World of Sport came to an end and the American product became really, really popular over here and kind of took over the landscape. And then here you were so many years later under contract to WWE. I think it probably all started as a bit of in a guest coaching role, if I'm not mistaken.
It did actually, yes. And here again, my memory's letting me down badly here. But I enjoyed the period I had with them. Yeah? Yes, coaching and, definitely.
And what about the on-screen role as the general manager of NXT UK? And I've spoken to quite a few of the stars that were part of the NXT setup, Nina Samuels and Shah Samuels and Sam Gradwell and various others. But it looked like a lot of fun.
It was actually. I really enjoyed it. And I was very disappointed actually when it came to an end.
Same.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they pulled out and went over into Europe actually. Because
I think that's the plan.
Because of the taxes they were paying over here.
Right. Yeah.
And obviously, obviously they don't need me over in Europe, do they? Because I don't speak German or French or.
No. But did it take you out of your comfort zone, playing more of a TV personality and on-air character, as opposed to doing what you grew up on, and that was actually the physical stuff in the ring? Did it take a little bit of adapting, finding that Johnny Saint character?
Well, it was something new, wasn't it? Something I wasn't used to. But at the same time, I realised that I had to put as much effort into being this new character as I was when I was wrestling.
Yeah.
So I did try.
And it definitely worked.
I did try. And in actual fact, I was getting to the stage where I was enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. And final question then, Johnny. What do you think your legacy on the British wrestling scene, or maybe wrestling in general, will be? Like I say, man of 1,000 holds, entertained millions every single week, and had a style that many people kind of emulated and copied over the years and still do today. But what do you think your legacy will be? What would you like it to be?
Oh, what would I like it to be?
We're getting quite deep here, Johnny.
Right, yes, we are actually. I'd like people to, if they're talking about wrestling, to say, "Oh, do you remember Johnny Saint?"
Yeah.
He was an escapist artist, always fit,
Yeah.
always presented himself 100%, and a good wrestler.
And if you don't mind me saying, one of the very best to do it.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
But Johnny Saint, it's been an honour and a privilege speaking to you on episode 7 of the Legends Masterclass. I just want to shake your hand and thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anytime. Anytime.